Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. If you were joined us here yesterday for the calendar year end, that video is now available on YouTube. Hopefully this one will be done and uploaded by the end of the day, but we have the other section of our calendar year end, purchasing and payables. It's gonna cover all the new stuff with the 1099s and NECs and things like that. And hopefully is not as a dramatic a change as you thought it might be, and kind of ease your fears moving into the new calendar year. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jill. Jill, why don't you say a couple words, introduce yourself.
Good morning, everybody, and Happy New Year. Yes, I'm Jill Wynn, and I am one of the itinerant business managers down at the county, Maricopa, office of the Maricopa County School Superintendent, whatever it is, it's a mouthful. And yeah, I'm going over the 1099s today, doing good, COVID-free, yay, and welcome. Hope everybody's ready to get this new year rolling. During my presentation, I'm gonna be working in a training database, and we will have questions being monitored, so feel free to ask questions, whatever you need to do. So with that, I think we are ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
While Jill is doing it, just want to let everybody know I just posted the files, a couple of documents for today in the chat. So go ahead and take a look at the chat. If you have any questions as we go throughout today, make sure you chime in on the chat, and we will get to them as soon as we can. Thank you.
And you guys can see my screen all right? All right. So before we kind of get into the 1099 processing, I wanted to go over the change with the 1099 miscellaneous box 7 and the new 1099 NEC. NEC stands for the non-employee compensation. Technically, that form's not new. It's been around for a while, but it's kind of new to our world. The IRS made this change in 2020 that the 1099 Miss 7 box is no longer an option. You'll no longer see it. So we need to make sure we've changed our vendors over. So that's kind of where we're going to start. There's been a few notices that have come out about it. Hopefully you've changed them. If not, we're going to go ahead and take care of that first. So we're going to go into purchase and payables. We're going to go into vendor maintenance. Now, the nice thing about vendor maintenance is looking at our 1099 stuff, we can look at it all on the grid to know what we have to change. I do have a grid layout that I save. I use grid layouts a lot. I would highly recommend them because they'll allow you to filter your grid to what you need to see. Since we're working only in the 1099 area, that's all I'm going to select is my 1099 vendors. You see, by changing my grid, I can see that I have the 1099 boxes selected and where it sits. Now, in my world, you see miscellaneous 6. In your world, if you haven't changed over, you're going to see miscellaneous 7. I'd already gone through and updated our training database, and I reverted back so I could show you what it looks like. Unfortunately, miscellaneous box 7 is no longer an option. So when I reverted back, I had to pick a different one. So that's why mine says 6. Pretty much what the IRS has done since, if you go to your 1099 tab and you look here through your boxes, you'll notice there's a larger selection and there is no more 7. 7 is no longer an option. If you have 7, some of you might have gone into your processing, invoice processing to pay a 1099 vendor, and lo and behold, you got that notice that said it was invalid because it was box 7 that was selected. You needed to come back in and change it. Very simple, changing them one at a time. You just scroll up, select NEC1. 99% of everything we do is NEC1, straight non-employee compensation. You'll select OK. We do not have a prior year database, so ours does not come up copy to prior. You do. If you do, you want to select that copy to prior so that it will change it in both years. And now my grid has NEC1. I just changed here. You also can mass update, but before we do that, I want to go out to invoice processing and show you in my invoice processing. I'm going to load these again. I also have a grid here for my 1099. So as you can see, here's our boxes. So I'm going to take one of these vendors. We have Mentoring Minds. I'm going to go back into vendor maintenance and change Mentoring Minds so you can see the effect. So currently they are still under the miscellaneous. Pretend it's a 7. I'm going to go to my 1099. When you first open this, you're never going to see the NEC 1. For some reason, when this box opens, it's going to always be at the top. You're going to have to go find it. Click OK, click OK. From here, with it highlighted, I'm actually going to update my invoices. Go to your actions, update your invoices. Yep, I wish for it to be updated. Now, when I come back out here and I apply selection, you'll notice on Mentoring Minds, it's actually changed it to NEC 1. Basically, that's what you need to do. And you're going to need to update your invoices in both fiscal years. Now, in vendor maintenance, the nice thing is I can filter my grid. Again, I've got only my 1099 vendors on the grid. There is a mass update, thankfully. And we're going to change our 1099 to NEC 1. You do have to put a reason. It has to have one here. It's going to update everybody on my grid. Remember, it says on your grid there, not that you have highlighted. It changes your entire grid. So it's really important that you have your grid filtered to your 1099 vendors. Now you can see it has changed everybody. However, I didn't change my invoices. So with that, I now have to select them all. Oops, missed it. And go to actions, update my invoices. Give it a second. Okay, it's done. Down here, it says I'm ready. Nope. We need our music. Okay. Now when I go to invoice processing and reload my screen, everybody's been changed. So if you haven't done this already, you are going to want to do it. You'll need to make sure, trust but verify, update your invoices in both fiscal years, just so that everything changes. If you select, when you do a mass update like I just did for my NEC box, it does not change the prior year. The mass update only changes this current year I'm in. So go back into your prior year, mass update everybody, and update the invoices there. That's kind of where you're going to start. So are we good, Tracy? We have any questions? I'm going to assume we're good. All right, I see the thumbs up. Yay. So from here, that's the first piece you want to do is update all of your invoices. Once you've done that, now there's a few other things we want to check before we get into there. So I'm going to close the, actually, I'm going to close them so that we're kind of back at the beginning. So a couple of things you want to check. You might not have access to this. You want to go into your general ledger default settings. Make sure your tax ID is in there and it is correct. Usually your business office makes sure, but look and make sure it is in there. One of the other checks you want to do is in purchasing and payable, in configuration, the default settings. You want to make sure that your 1099 calendar settings are correct here. Obviously, January 1st to December 31st. Of the prior calendar year. You've noticed here, it used to say miscellaneous limit. Now it says miscellaneous NEC. Those limits have not changed. They are still the same. It's still $600 is where the minimum is. Anything under $600 doesn't need to have a 1099. Over it does. Miscellaneous interest limit, although we don't use it, you do have to have the $10 in that box. So make sure this information is set correctly. Then you're good. Now you'll normally, NEC World has already caused us to go into vendor maintenance and make some changes to our vendor maintenance. However, at this point, some of the things you would normally look at is anything that kind of stares you in the face on your vendor maintenance. You're going to want to go in and check out, like, for example, calendar year to date. You might have been a district that used the calendar year to date because you're new to Visions. Well, if there's a number in here, now I do have some numbers in here because we don't have a prior database and I wanted to get some more information. I do have calendar year to dates, but if you have them in here and they shouldn't be, you've got to remember to zero them out. If they should be, for example, I don't have a Visions prior year. That's why I put some in here for our 1099 aspect. Then they legitimately would be in here. It's a couple places you'll find them. If I go here to my 1099, right here, prior calendar year to date. That's where that information gets put. When you're brand new in Visions on the first year, you might have to bring those balances in from a prior year. If you're, that's pretty much where you'd bring them in. If you don't need them, you delete them. It is a mass as well. Oh, it wasn't. Sorry, my bad. It isn't. You have to clear them out. So other things you could look through here for duplicates on your socials, but there's a report that I actually prefer to run when I'm getting ready to run my 1099s. Some people don't use this, but we're going to talk about it. It's called the 1099 edit report. So we're in purchasing and payables. We're going to go to reports. We're going to go to the 1099 edit report. This is a really good report to look at your 1099 data. You have tons of options here you can select from. I'm going to say, show me only my 1099 vendors. Now, if I run this report now, it'll be short and quick, but it's many pages because it goes and looks at your database and pulls all 1099 vendors onto this report. It's 8 pages. Some I haven't used, but everybody here on this report is marked as a 1099 vendor. Well, if I want to get a feel for, first I want to check, do I have any duplicates? I can run it here to check duplicates by tax ID and social security number. It will look at both. And again, when I run that report, I happen to have a duplicate. I did this on purpose. They're duplicates. As you can see, there's no action in either. And if I go back and now you would research into vendor maintenance, they're inactive. But I wanted to show you what this report is going to look like. So you can go and research, why do you have a duplicate? In this case, the vendor used to be called Count Me In, and then they changed to Skywire. The note is in there. You have to have either a tax or social. You can't have no tax ID or no social. So one has been inactivated, the other is active. I have no action, so there's nothing I need to worry about. If you did have them and you had business in both, because maybe in the beginning, in last year, they were Count Me In, this year they're Skywire, it's both in the same calendar year, you'd have to make that adjustment when we're on our 1099 grid to combine them to where it should be. Let's go back to that report. Another thing I can do is say, only show me vendors that have invoices for this calendar year, only the 1099 with invoice totals. I run that. Now, these are the only 1099s I have with invoice totals. It gives you a count, it gives you a heads up. Right now, the 1099 NEC is printed on blank paper, so you wouldn't necessarily have to order the forms. There are some vendors out there that were having you order the blank forms, that's fine. This gives you a count. You can also run the report as you can see, there's many options. Go in and play with it. Show only vendors over 600. That'll give you a more accurate count of how many 1099s you're going to be printing. It's a great report to use prior to processing your 1099s because it gives you a really good screenshot of what your vendor database looks like. Now, all it tells you is totals amount and that they're a 1099. It doesn't tell you the box or anything, but it's a great tool to use before you process. So basically, that's our prep world. If you've gone through kind of your prep world, you've looked at your vendors, you've looked at your report, you're really confident that you're good to go, then we're going to start processing. So I know that's kind of short and sweet on the NEC part, but any questions out there that we need to address, or are we good to go? I got Mike doing a little fancy
All right, I'm trying to like find the unmute button. Sorry about that. So there was one question that was good. A couple of questions that were good, actually. One of which was in 1920, if the fiscal year is locked because that year is already closed, do we need to unlock it so they can go in and update those 1099 settings for next year? The answer is yes. And I'll have that done within the next 15, 20 minutes or so. So any districts that we host, I'm going to go through and unlock those 1920 years so you can update your 1099 settings in there. So thanks, Mary, for pointing that out. We did have a couple people say that the audio was coming out. It's still coming through clear for me. So it might be a bandwidth issue. So I did turn off a couple extra video feeds. I'm leaving just myself and Jill for now. If it continues, I'll turn off mine. I'll turn off Jill's and we'll see if we can free up as much space. We will have the fully recorded audio and everything of this available later today. So if you feel you missed something, don't worry. We'll have the whole video and everything, and the audio still seems pretty crystal clear. So we'll make sure that you get this information. So that's it.
Okay. Well, with that, let's kind of move on. So we're going to basically start our 1099 process. Let me get my mouse back. There we go. So we're going to go into purchase and payables, 1099 processing. Let me clear my grid first. I'm going to delete my grid because as you can see, I was playing in there. So we're just going to delete it. Yep. Okay. So when you come in, that's pretty much what it should look like unless you've been in here playing. Now, this is really convenient that it's going to walk us through these steps. You're just going to basically follow your action menu. At any time, you can regenerate these over and over and over. So if you generate, we validate, we generate, and something has to change, you can just come in like I did, delete my grid, and do it all over again. First thing you want to do is your validation report. The validation report is going to give you a list of any vendors that have issues with their addresses because of the truncating. It truncates it when it prints it on the 1099. There's only so far that it can show. When you see this, like with the W-2s, you're going to go look at these address lines and see what you can cut, what you can change, what you can make it a little shorter. It looks at all of your 1099 vendors. It doesn't just look at the ones that have active invoices. So keep that in mind. They might not even be an option. Print the report, go back into your vendor maintenance. I know one of them was Jill McLaughlin. I'm just going to call that one up. And it's probably due to, see, her suite is spelled out and it's a lot of numbers. You can just change it here if you wanted to. Then you go back in, you can validate again and see any other changes. She's still longer. I'm not going to mess with it because I know I don't have anything in there for her. Once you've done your validation report, you want to generate your 1099s. So I have an error. There's a vendors that have to be fixed. If you have errors, it is going to show up on that report. Duplicate tax IDs, because I knew that vendor had a duplicate tax ID. I had seen it when I ran my other report. I didn't correct it. They have to have a tax ID and or social security. So it's going to tell me it's a duplicate. But if you notice, my report has still come up. And these two vendors, Skywire and Count Me In, sorry. If I go back here, there's Count Me In. They're still on my report, as well as Skywire. It's still here. I'm going to really quick filter. They're both on my 1099 grid. At this point, if there were transactions for them, I can scroll across here. There's nothing, or I could open the record. You would need to do a combination of them. You would, if they both had amounts in them, you'd have to determine which one and clean it up here on the grid. I know that neither one of them had activity, so I'm not worrying about it. But basically, I've now generated. At this point, you can double click a record, so you can go in and change it. If I had to combine those two, let me bring them back up again so we can see. I'm going to filter by. So let's say Count Me In had $1,000 in their NEC screen. First off, look at where your tabs are. 1099 MISC, here's your 1099 NEC. All of these fields are editable. It's pulling the data that it got from your visions, from the data you've processed. Now here, I could modify that address just on the grid and save it on the grid, and it would print correctly on the W-2. If I had to change dollar amounts, if these guys had money in their box and I didn't want it there because maybe Skywire was the main vendor, I could come here, put it into their box, save it, and then go back into Count Me In and remove it from their box. And now my totals are right. And if it was over 600 and met all the proper criteria, the 1099 would print on the vendor who had the most money, and I wouldn't have to worry about the prior one. I could also delete him right off the grid. And he's gone. Now, if I undo my last filter and bring them, we go to look for Count Me In, you notice they're no longer here. So it's just cleaning up before you're printing your 1099s. Once you're confident the screen looks good, you've looked at your reports, you've checked your addresses, anybody that might be truncated, you've generated. The next would be to remove vendors below the limit. Now remember, we were into our purchase and payable in our default settings, and we said the limit was $600. Well, I'm going to grab some of my NECs. Actually, I think I still have that report up. I do have some NECs below the limit. I have a few right down here. I have a couple of them that are going to be below my limit. So when I clear my screen, those guys are going to be gone. It'll be Popcorn Palace, for example. Remove vendors below the limit, cleans up my entire database, removes everybody that was under that $600 mark. That's pretty much, now we're ready. We've gone through, we validated, we generated, and we removed everybody. These are my 1099 people. The other thing that has changed is because there's no longer, because we've gone with an NEC, now there's multiple more types of 1099s that you'd be printing. So 1099 miscellaneous you won't be using anymore. Pretty much you'll be going to your 1099 NEC. Now here's what's changed. The IRS guidelines came out on the NEC that it's a whopping 8 pages for a 1099 NEC. Out of that 8 pages, there's 2 pages that are required to go to the recipient. All of the rest are not. So with that said, there's no forms yet. So the 8-page, per the IRS, the 8-page one is their form and it should be printed on plain paper. Well, I'm going to do, I can't do just one, it's going to do them all, but that's okay. I don't have many. As soon as it's done. If you print it the 8-page to here, it's going to print to your visions. This is the happy world of the 8 pages. So I have 176 pages for my little screenshot of vendors. Page 1 is instructions. Page 2 is copy A for the IRS. We file electronically, so you won't have that. Copy 1 goes to the State Department. We don't file electronically. Copy B is for the recipient. Instructions, recipient, copy 2. Now, and then the last one is for you, the district. So there's a lot of pages here and instructions that we really don't need. Go ahead and print it on the 8-page and select and choose your paper. Or from what I have been reading, you can actually print 2 up and supply those to your recipient. Because we're filing electronic, if I do the 2 up, electronically, all the forms are done when you upload it to fire.gov. You don't need the state copy. You don't need the copy for the IRS because it all comes electronically to them. Hold on, it should be coming.
Somebody asked a question in the chat about, I read the copy to the state is not yet being sent by IRS to the state for the NEC form. Is that correct? Or only if it's not filed electronically. So there is not an option yet to upload the NEC form to the state through AZ taxes. You can upload the -R or miscellaneous, but there's no upload for 1099 MECs or NECs on the Department of Revenue. So I don't know. I haven't heard anything. This is the IRS is not sending them to Department of Revenue. We'll continue to look at.
I don't.
This
Yeah, I
is
haven't
one of
heard
those
that
things
either.
that the information just seems to keep coming out.
And it's possible if they still have it listed only as a 1099 miss, maybe they're uploading both together. I don't know the answer to that either because that doesn't seem to come up.
All right, so hold on. You want me to print the NEC 2 up?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got it to come up.
Can you share your screen? I don't know why mine's not coming up. Do I have to stop?
No, I'll kick you off.
All right.
All right, can you see my screen? I hope.
No, maybe. Can you guys see? Yep, I see it. You guys see it?
Right.
Okay, so this is what it looks like. It looks just like the 1099, only it says non-employee compensation. Everything else is the same. It printed copy B for the recipient, and it printed copy 2. If you print them on the 8-page paper, the only one the recipient needs is copy B and copy 2. That's it. So you could do this. It's the same thing.
So there are forms out there that have the recipient instructions on the back. I think they're relatively new because I know those instructions weren't on there a couple of weeks ago. I did post a link in the chat to some example 2-up NEC forms that you could use if you want to use those. They are different than the 1099 miscellaneous in the fact that the instructions are different. Other than that, it's the same blank piece of paper, the perforation down the middle, and then just some small print on the back that nobody's going to read anyway. So.
Exactly.
And they're cheap.
They're very cheap. And if you've run your the 1099 report, you already know a count of approximately how many you want. So you should be good.
All right, I'm going to stop sharing.
Yep.
All you, Jill.
Okay. It's coming back to mine. Hold on, I gotta get there. Okay, can you see my screen again?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So we've gone through and printed our forms. Next is creating your 1099 file. When this box comes up, remember your payment year is 2020. Don't put 2021. Fill out the boxes accordingly. We're not doing a prior year, but if you were, you have options. You should have already, at this point, you should already have your login for fire.gov to upload and transmit your file. That's where you're going to get all this information. Contact, remember to update that, because this is if there's a problem with it, where the email goes and who they contact. So if you've had a change in who's doing this or who's responsible for, make sure you look at this information and change it. You know, it comes up with the last information from the prior year. You're going to have a control code. You'll get that from when you signed up for your irs.gov. State code is always 04. Your entity, it'll pull from your database. Then there's these boxes here. If you're doing your first original file, you want to check that box. If it were a correction file, or if for some reason you're never going to file again, you'd use the boxes accordingly. Original file. Down here for the destination, always hit your radio buttons and reselect where it's going to go. I'm just going to put it here because I have a trash file. Always reconnect it, because with this, a lot of this working from home, back and forth and things, that destination might have changed. It calls it the IRS tax. That's the name of the folder that needs to be updated. When you click OK, it's going to create my file. There it is, created successfully. Now, if I wanted to, I can go open that. Oh, look, now they came up. How bizarre is that? I don't recommend you go look at this, but I will show you. The file is called IRS tax. Basically, that's it. All the information that IRS needs. Don't open it. You don't want to get into that file. When you have your 1099s on your screen, I suggest you save them. Oh, look, they opened many times. Save them to a PDF on your file for inevitably that person who comes back and says, oops, I've lost it. That happens with the vendors as well. So I suggest you save it, because at any time you can just open it up and reprint it. Once you've done that, this information will be on the grid every time I come in. Saving them allows you to save a complete snapshot of where you were when you processed. It will have all of that data on the actual 1099s, so that if you were to delete these by mistake, you're still going to have the data that you sent out on your 1099s and the file that was created. Once you get that done, we've created our file. That is it. We're good. Any questions?
I did post in the chat. I did find on the Arizona Department of Revenue site that they don't have an upload for NEC forms yet. And for tax year 2020, they're requiring districts to send in either a CD with that IRS tax file on there, or a paper document if you don't have a whole lot. I don't know. I don't remember what the threshold is for that, but you will need to send a copy of this file to DOR on CD in order to upload your 1099s to them.
And since you're already creating the file because you're uploading it to Fire, yeah, do the CD and send it in. It's probably easier. Well, that is it. 1099s is short and sweet. Once you've cleaned up your database, once you've taken care of all your vendors and you've printed them, pretty much that's it. If we have no other questions out there.
There were some good questions today, so thank you, everybody. I also posted in the chat an example again of the Tyler business forms that use the 2UP, but you can really purchase them from anywhere. I used to have a list of local vendors that did these forms. I don't anymore. They're horribly out of date and all their phone numbers and changed. So I don't have any other reference. So if you know of somebody, or if you know of a business that's locally that you purchase these forms from, let us know, and we'll tack their information onto when we upload this video, and we'll send the information out to everybody. But good, hopefully you saw there's not a huge lot of changes from going on, just a couple things. I did unlock the fiscal year 1920 for all the districts that we host, so that is now available. So I would go and update those first, and then just let us know when you're done, and we'll go ahead and lock those back up. But thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jill. Any parting words or wisdom that you'd like to impart upon us?
You know, stay healthy and mask up. And if you run into issues, you have questions, we're here for you. Don't hesitate to give us a call. And that's about it. Stay healthy, folks.
All right, everybody. Have a
Thank
great
you.
weekend. We'll see you next time. If you have any suggestions for topics that you'd like to see a mini session right now,
Yes.
we're kind of running bare bones right now. So we had to do calendar year end, but we have openings for the next couple months. So if you have a topic that you'd like to hear of, send us an email over to fss@maricopa.gov, and we'll take a look and see if there's some interest, and maybe we'll add it to a topic. It's the nice thing about these mini sessions is it's easy for us to do those topics that maybe not a whole lot of people would normally be interested in, because we really don't need to go anywhere. We don't need to drive anywhere. We don't need to eat out or anything like that. And Jill didn't even leave her house today. So I don't know.
But I did get dressed, so we're good. Took the PJs off, you know.
All right. Have a great week, everybody. Have a great weekend. And
Thank you all.
happy 2021.